Today I wanted to talk about the freehand on the Chaos Lord, and basically I'm going to start with like the preparation step and like how to approach a project like that. Then I'm going to talk a bit about like how I mixed the colors, and then how I painted the shape on it, like the order in which I painted the shapes, and then the shading itself. In a future video I'm going to talk about the base and like yeah. So the first step, at least for me, what I did is to start sketching the actual freehand. So because if you already start painting on your model, like probably you're gonna like think about ideas and stuff like that, and if you already have the drawing that you want to have on your model, it's going to make it much easier. It's just going to be about applying color on your shape instead of like thinking about the shape itself, right? So at least for me, I thought it was very helpful to start drawing something on a flat paper with a pencil, so you can erase and like brainstorm some different shapes. In that case, I chose to go for a chaos star with a very not simple, but like nothing that refers something that exists, so I don't need to think about anatomy and things like that. If it doesn't respect any kind of anatomy, it's fine. So yeah. Okay, so let's start with the colors. As usual, I use Chimera, and here I wanted to do something very red for the skin, almost like exposed muscle. And you can see I use the red, oxide red, some white from AK Interactive. I really like it for mixing because it has a bit of a zinc white, which is a bit softer and less chalky. Also add some carbon black to darken it and to desaturate it, so it's not too red and saturated. Then I start creating my mid-tone. You'll see just by adding a bit of white and some Mars orange. And as I go higher in value, basically I add more white and more Mars orange to make it to make it look like the light is a bit warmer, basically, and to not have it too pinkish, basically. If you just add some white, it's gonna look very pink. So you can see last highlight, I add some white and then a bit of a bit of Mars orange. Alright, so before we start, I wanted to mention that Richard Gray has an amazing video tutorial on his Patreon, and it actually helped me a lot on that freehand. So I suggest you go take a look if you're interested. Alright, so here I'm starting with my darker color, and what I'm gonna work on is just to draw the main outline of my creature, and basically it's to try to understand the volume that it's gonna take on the cloak, and to have kind of a base to draw the rest on. So try to use a paint that is thin enough, but not too thin, so you have good enough coverage and you don't have to draw like multiple time over and over the same thing. So you're gonna have crispier lines. What is important though is to not have add texture, right, to your miniature. So here I start painting the tentacle, and I'm wrapping them around the chaos star, so it gives some kind of depth and like an effect of like 3-dimension. So you have to remember, like where the tentacle will go behind the chaos star and when it would go back on top. And what's important for this kind of shapes, which are very thin, is the placement of your brush. So you can see the way I place the brush at the end here when I want to draw like a super sharp tip for the tentacle. I place my my brush perpendicular, right, to the to the tentacle, and I take advantage of the sharpness of the brush. Also, it's important to have a sharp brush, of course. Here I'm using Artista Opus 00 Series S. I really like them, but there are a lot of other very good brushes. What's important is to have a nice sharp tip and a decent belly, so the paint doesn't dry too fast on your tip. So for the Chaos Star, you can say I already painted it, but I used only black paint just to have an idea where it is, and so I can wrap my tentacle around it. But later on, unfortunately I didn't record it, but I painted it gold. And what is important for that, to make it simpler, is to think it as so don't make it metallic and like use like the fold of the cape to do your highlight and your reflection. Think about it like the person who created the cloak on that miniature. Let's say he uses stitched, and he kind of created a light for that art, right? and then you can shade on top of that. So like you paint kind of a gold NMM, like it would be on a flat surface, with a light. You decide your own angle of light. It could be different from the angle of light that you're actually using for the actual miniature, right? So here I started shading the tentacle very quickly, just to understand where the tentacle goes under and back on top, just to kind of create some sense of like 3D. Okay, so here I'm mixing a new paint, and it's for the teeth and the eyes. So as base I used I think it's Mars orange, and I added some white for the coverage and to desaturate it, and it's gonna create once I add a bit of black, it's gonna create like a very light brown, as you can see, very desaturated, almost a gray, like a warm gray. Then I create my highlight. Here I just added a bit of white, but you'll see I add a bit of oxide yellow to make it look a bit more yellowish, like desaturated yellowish. It's gonna be for the teeth and the eyes, so it's gonna be to make them look like a bit sick, you know, like dirty and like not healthy. I love oxide yellow. I'm running out, you can see. And then what I do, I just I do an intermediate pool. You'll see. Yeah, I mix a bit of the two color just to have a color in between for my for the blending. So here, sorry, my camera was having a difficulty to focus, but you can see I started the teeth, and as you can see, it's for now it's just flat. It's just white, just to have shapes again, the same as for the body, and so it's to kind of have like to place, you know, my elements first, like very simple way and like quickly, so I can correct easily. And it's very important to have a sharp brush for this kind of freehand. Well, I mean, the sharper your paintbrush is gonna be, and the sharper you're gonna be able to paint your the teeth. But what I found you can do to make them sharper is actually to come back with darker color and then go around it and like correct it around it with some black, for example, and make them look sharper. So even if you don't have the sharpest brush, you can still achieve like a sharp look. And again, don't think about the fold, just place your element right now, like the same color, no shading, just place your elements. And once you have a good idea how it looks like, and then you can start adding detail into it. Don't lose time by adding detail right away, like just place your elements on your your painting first. So yeah, you'll see soon what I meant by the black. So you can see here what I did. I painted black around them, and I made them look sharper just by adding black around it. So I think it's a trick you can use for other pieces on your miniatures. Sorry, here my camera was having difficulty again to focus, but you can see I kind of finished the teeth, and right now I'm going on the eyes. So again, don't like shade or anything, just place them and try to understand how like if it looked good, right? Here that's what's nice about this kind of creature, is you don't really need to respect any anatomy. It's simpler. It's not like you're drawing a human face and you have to respect rules. Here, like for example, I see maybe it's missing a tooth here that would look a bit cooler. Okay, I just place it, Same for the eyes. You'll see like there's a blank space on top there, so I was like, okay, let's add another eye, right, to fill the space. So I would suggest, like, if you're starting with freehand, just start with things that do not exist, right, like that you're just creating, so you don't have to respect the shape, right, that of the thing that actually exists. So yeah, you see, as I was saying, like I was feeling odd, it's a bit empty here, so let's just add an eye. And again, like, don't think about shading and the cape itself, like just draw it. Use a thin enough paint, and you can easily correct, right? Like here, if I see, oh, my eye is not, it's not, I don't like it, I can just go back, use the first paint, cover it, and that's it. Alright, so now I start adding some detail. Here you can see I use my dark color, and I'm starting to draw the gums. So once I have like a kind of basic shape, then I use my highlight and I start highlighting the volumes, just to try to understand the volume and have an idea, right, of like if it looks good or not. So here you can see I started by just highlighting all on top of every teeth. And so you see I get kind of like a basic idea of the shape from there. And later on, actually, I connect the gums, you'll see. But for now, what I do is I refine a bit more the shapes and the shade. So yeah, here I'm starting to glaze with the intermediate color just to smoothen a bit the highlight. And so you see, that's what I was saying. So here I thought it was looking a bit weird and too much the same. So I connected some of the gums to make it look a bit more like deformed. And then I start highlighting the tentacle and the rest of the body. And for the light, what I was imagining here is that the person who stitched the cape, that he just used like a light from above, which is like the simplest light, the one we're the most used to. And so that's why you can see like the highlight on the top are actually stronger than the highlight on the bottom of my creature. So it adds like it makes it look bigger, right? Because if my creature is very big, then the area that are under are gonna be shaded, right? So like even the highlight on the small like parts of it are gonna be darker than the part on the top of it. So I consider like a big sphere, basically. So here I start to glaze inside the volumes, just to start building the volumes and make them smoother. And you can see also like my highlight color is very pale. So if I glaze a bit of the intermediate color, it's gonna add some mid-tone in it. It's gonna make it warmer and more like bloody. And then I start shading the eye with the brown, and it's gonna make them look sickly, like the brown. And the way I'm shading it is I make a strong shading, and so it's gonna make the eye look like they're kind of going out of the socket. And finally I add some pupil, and I make them like very small, so it doesn't look human. So here, like, take your time and use a sharp brush. Make sure your paint is humid enough. If necessary, for example, if your where you paint is dry, you can actually add a bit of retarder in it, so you make sure the paint is not drying on the tip of your brush. And then it's the reflection. So here I added a bit of white in my highlight, and I just make a specular reflection from the top, and it's gonna make them look wet and like humid. So you can see here what I was mentioning before. I use my pinky and the other finger to stabilize my hand on top of the plant, and also I hold my brush very close to the tip to have more control over the brush and where I place my paint. Okay, so here you can see I'm starting to highlight a bit the teeth, and I go pretty high in value to make them look wet and shiny, basically, to look like them look like there is saliva on top of it. I even add a bit more white into my my highlight. So you can see here, I decided in the middle of the paint job to add an eye socket. I felt like the area was a bit too empty, so I just added that to add some interest. But I didn't add a full eye to not make it look too busy, you know. You can see also I add some other dark spot as like dimples, just trying to add a bit more interest and detail, basically. And it's gonna look more organic and gore, let's say. All right, so from there, it's mostly about refining the shapes. So I'm gonna stop the music, and you're free to change the playback speed on YouTube and listen to your own music. Alright, so now for the last step, I'm gonna start shading the fold on the cape itself. And what I like to use is Procreal, the transparent black, because like the name says, it's very transparent, so it's just gonna bring everything down in value and in saturation. And you can see it's very transparent, so I can glaze it on, and I have a lot of control over where I put my my shade. It doesn't cover all of the art. It still keeps the paint under it. It just brings a bit of the value down. And that's why I like that paint, because it's very transparent. Most of the time, the carbon black, they're very powerful, and they cover everything, even when you thin it down. So, but if you don't have it, I suggest you try maybe on something else before you start covering your whole work. You could try maybe to add some matte medium, like a lot of matte medium, or maybe some master medium, to bring down the coverage power, I guess that's how you would call that. And so you can see what I'm doing here is now I start to think about the volume of the cape itself, and not the art. So every time the light would be let's say hidden, I start shading, like I would do usually on a usual cloak. The only difference is that here I'm covering the freehand. I think it's much easier than actually thinking about all of that when you're painting your freehand. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'll be doing for the rest. So you can see where I add more black, and where I keep it very light. The only maybe the only disadvantage with that paint is that it's very shiny. So usually what I do, I add a bit of either a bit of matte varnish into it, or I put some matte varnish after I apply it.